What is the real reason for the United States to act the way it is acting against India? The answer will surprise you. Maybe it won't. Well, there is a slide deck that we have put together, and this is a continuation of what I said a few hours ago in India's reply to Canada. Because India is actually fighting two different battles here. With Canada, a little bit more focused around Niger, but with the United States, a lot more is at stake. By the time you are done watching this video, I hope you understand what the stakes are, and they are very big indeed. As a matter of fact, there is going to be a BRICS meeting in a few days from now in Russia. Using a slide deck, I'm going to explain to you how I see what is happening in the back rooms of United States as well as India and perhaps the remaining BRICS countries, including the new ones like Saudi Arabia. So let's fasten our seatbelt and get on for a thrilling ride. Here we go. The real reason the United States is after India. Well, this I think is the real reason about what India is going to do in the next BRICS summit. There's a big history behind it. All the countries other than the United States are watching aghast at the way the US is running up its debt. You want to get an idea of how much debt is increasing per second? Hold on to your breath. It is $100,000 per second. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. You get the idea, right? That is how fast the United States is running up its debt. Now, some of you are math wizards. You're going to ask me, how did I arrive at this number? Here we go. So, if you take 100,000 a second, multiply it by 60, and by 24, you get 8.64 billion debt per day, and it comes to close to 776 billion per quarter. The recent numbers were around 500 plus billion per quarter, the debt that it was rising. The recent numbers said something around 500 billion per quarter, but you get the idea, right? So this will be achieved in the next few quarters. So the number that it is going up by 100,000 per second, the debt, is mind-boggling indeed. So where is the United States spending all its money? Here was the 2022 United States budget, and it came from Council on Foreign Relations. I'll give you the link. That actually is a must read because you understand where the money is going. In fact, this will give you an idea of where the money is going, but if you want a little bit more in-depth detail where all the money is going, that has a lot of interactive charts, and I encourage you to read that article. Net interest payment, that is interest payment towards the debt that is already accumulated by the US, that is about 475 billion. Discretionary spending of around 26%, of which defense is about 14%, non-defense is 12%. And then the other numbers like mandatory spending for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, income security programs. This income security programs are the ones that I think giving the money for the illegals, also non-defense, all these things. There is a lot of camouflaging going on here, meaning like the CBO, Congressional Budget Office itself, may not be able to give you all the numbers. So people are looking at US spending money like there is no tomorrow. I mean, just look at how the numbers lie down, right? 100,000 per second comes out to about 6 million per minute, about 360 million in an hour, and 8.6 billion per day. That is how fast the US debt is rising. Now, let's take a look at what was happening in the BRICS meetings. BRICS was meeting for, every 3 months, 4 months, whatever, and they were seeing all these things rise up, and they were getting really concerned. What is going on? Every time the United States prints money like this, it actually, because the world is based on the United States dollar as the reference, the more the US prints, the more diluted your holdings of the US dollar become. However, there is a problem. The debt to GDP ratio of the United States now stands only third from the top. The most is Japan, then comes Italy, and the third one is the United States. How did things come to this? Well, you can explain like, okay, it was because of COVID, it was because of this, it was because of that, and whatever it is, there has been no attempt to rein in the spending. If anything, it's gone up even more. So this is one reason why the BRICS countries have been saying, look, this system is not going to work because we are all getting diluted, we are all getting burdened for something that we are not doing. So Brazil's president Lula da Silva proposed a BRICS common currency for trade and investment to reduce reliance on the US dollar. By the way, I'm going to give you all the data about how much of the world's transaction takes place using the US dollar today. You'll get that also. The proposal was made during the BRICS summit in Johannesburg. Economists and officials highlight challenges due to economic, political, and geographical differences between the BRICS nations. The currency would aim to mitigate crisis from dollar exchange rate fluctuations. Because what's happening now is that United States is pegging its currency versus all the other countries, and there is this system called SWIFT. If you use SWIFT, you have to go by the rules that they say. So is India's exchange rate of 83 rupees to a dollar, is that correct? In my opinion, it is undervalued. It should be closer to 35, 40. But if you make that number, all these exporters in India would scream. They'll say it's too expensive for us, because many of them are importing raw materials, doing the finished product and exporting it back. If India was creating its own raw materials or getting its own raw materials, then this crisis can be mitigated. Anyway, that's a topic for a different day. I'm not an economist, I'm just an economics hobbyist. So what happened then was, Brazil's president argues that countries not using the US dollar should not be compelled to trade in it. He sees a BRICS currency as a way to enhance payment options and decrease member nations' vulnerabilities from dollar exchange rate fluctuations. Other BRICS leaders appear divided on the proposal. South Africa indicated that a BRICS currency was not on its agenda, but South Africa, after hemming and hawing, will toe the Chinese line. Now, the Chinese have already created something called as digital yuan. They've also created a digital currency called mBridge, of which China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and now Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are members in mBridge. mBridge is something different. We're not going to talk about mBridge here. We're going to talk about the new currency that BRICS is probably going to propose, and in fact, it might adopt it just days away. Days away. So, India stated that there was no intention of creating a BRICS currency, focused instead on boosting trade in national currencies. In other words, India wants others to pay for its goods, or others to accept its currency, which is the rupees. Now, the problem about rupees is that when India is importing crude from Russia, it's paying for it in rupees. Unless Russia has a need for all the rupees it is getting from India, it can't do that. It can't do anything with those rupees. So it starts having a big credit. And they are screaming, we've got billions of rupees, what are we going to do with it? So for that, what India needs to do is to produce something that is attractive to Russia. For example, programming talent. And tell Russia, well, we have UPI, we can pay the Indian programmers in rupees. After all, if an Indian programmer goes to work in Russia, what's he going to do? He's going to get paid in rubles, then he's going to go to some bank and transfer the money back into India in rupees. I mean, he may use some for spending locally, but beyond that, he has to transfer the money. So this is one way for the Russian government to make use of the rupees that it is getting in exchange for the crude it's selling to India. But this is not happening yet, because Indian programmers typically program in English. Maybe some other languages, I don't know, but bulk of them are doing that. Now, the key here is, what do we need to do? We need to have a currency that is not dollar based, a currency that everybody can get behind, a currency that everybody has some control over, if not all, and a currency that is fair and should appear to be fair. A lot of conditions here, right? So is there a currency like that? I'm coming up to that. Now, Establishing a BRICS currency would require significant political commitment and coordination among member nations, according to South African Central Bank Governor 𝗤𝙑𝗫𝗀𝗃𝗂𝘁. There is a need for a banking union and a fiscal union, as well as macroeconomic convergence among BRICS countries to support a common currency. A fiscal union is a union meaning like it's a currency that is, essentially accepted as barter in countries other than their own local currency. A system must be in place to ensure that the member countries adhere to the rules and standards required for maintaining the currency stability. So you come up with a new currency, right? Who prints it? And then how does, for example, one of the BRICS members has a bad quarter, there is a drought, they are not able to produce enough, whatever it is that they want to produce, therefore their currency is under pressure. What happens to this new common currency? They would have to, of course, pay more to the member nations because their currency is now valued less. And the reverse can also happen. And all these things, import, export also, there will be some problems. What happens? So all these things are complicated, and we need to make sure that these complications are evened out in a manner that is acceptable to both parties. That is the most important thing. So how does one make it do that? I'm going to give you a hint. Why is Bitcoin so popular? Bitcoin is so popular for two reasons. One is it's democratic. Anyone can mine it. Second one is there are only 23 million Bitcoins. You cannot mine beyond that. Already 21 to 21.5 million Bitcoins have already been mined. So the fact that there is a small limited quantity and the fact that no single country can mess with it is what makes Bitcoin attractive. Now let's take a look at what is going to be happening in the summit that is going to take place in Kazan, Russia a few days from now. The unit is going to be the name of the currency that is likely to be unveiled in the next meet in Kazan. I think it is in October 22nd or something like that, 2 or 3 days from now. Since the World War II, the US dollar has dominated global trade. We have all talked about Bretton Woods Agreement, and now that era may end as soon as next year. But again, this is just the beginnings as to what unit can be used to trade. I'm going to come to that in just one moment. First of all, we need to understand how does this unit system work. 𝗣𝗽𝗼𝗫 Escobar, a Brazilian geopolitical analyst, notes that the unit system has gained support in the BRICS Business Council and is part of planning for the upcoming BRICS summit in Kazan. Only yesterday or today people have started talking about it, but you can be assured that today in prime time everybody in India is going to be talking about it. If not today, tomorrow, something like that, in the next couple of days, because in the upcoming BRICS summit, Xi Jinping is going and Putin will be there and Narendra Modi also is going. So all three big ones are going to be there. Of course, the other two presidents and maybe even MBS, he might be there. So this is not something this is not a yet another BRICS meeting. This is a significant BRICS meeting. But what you will get from others is probably there's a white paper that has been released and people are going off of that. And you will get that data. You might get some press releases from each country and they'll be just putting that out. But what I'm going to tell you is the inside plumbing, because I have some familiarity with the inside workings of this unit system. So you will get your bang for the buck if you watch this video, and I want you to watch it till the very end. It's a little bit long, a little bit complex, but it's not as complex as it could be made out to be. Let me put it that way. Okay, so the first reason why things led to this is because of sanctions that have been levied on Russia. For example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, a lot of sanctions were imposed by the West. But what led to this acceleration of developments? For one thing, what the EU did was it seized $600 billion of Russia's currency and gold reserves. And they just said that this is what we are going to take for you invading Ukraine. Not only that, recently I also read somewhere that the assets of Russia in various banks, there was a dividend of close to $5 billion. And that dividend has been taken out from these and has been given to Ukraine, or it has been used to adjust against what Ukraine is getting from various countries. So these things are now beginning to have a big impact on various countries, because all countries are watching what is happening. Second thing that happened was Venezuela, which is in the grip of a huge economic crisis today, wanted to withdraw some of the gold that it had in UK's vaults, and the United Kingdom refused. They said, your country is not equipped to deal with it. Just flat out. This is my money I put in my bank, and my bank tells me you will not spend it the way I want you to spend it, or you are not capable of handling this money. Something like that. So this led to many countries who had their gold sitting in Lloyd's in London or any other such vaults in UK. They all started taking out this money, including India, because for the longest time India said, well, the cost that I incur to get that gold from there to India is more than the value of the gold itself. And so they did not do anything. But now, suddenly, with the onset of unit, gold becomes a very important commodity. And I will come to that in just a moment. So, what is driving it is, first of all, Russia is not happy with how it's being treated by the rest of the world, particularly the West. China thinks that it needs to have more control. Then Saudi Arabia and other oil producing countries, they are not happy with the way US is printing money. I mean, most of the countries are not happy. But US is not going away anywhere anytime soon. Okay. I have to tell you that also. As you see in the next few slides, you will understand how much of a grip the United States dollar has. The unit currency model was developed by Russian economists 𝗤𝙭 𝗤𝗏 and Vasily Zhavikin, along with a Chinese economist, 𝗤𝗚 who outlined it in a May white paper. The project is supported by the International Research Institute of Advanced Systems, IRIAS, a UN-certified intergovernmental research organization established in 1976 by former Eastern Bloc countries. Important. Here is an important point. The currency system employs blockchain technology to ensure it remains apolitical, facilitating international payments and trade without allowing any member to exert political pressure on any other member. So, in other words, if Russia decides to invade China and takes over some portion of it, then Russia can say, well, I have bigger say in this, therefore I will use this method. That's not possible in this. Essentially, once everybody joins unit, then there is going to be some method by which the exchange rates will be determined. And these exchange rates within their own ecosystem, there may be some variations. Those things will be automatically adjusted. Again, you need to read the white paper. This is where things start getting a little bit more complicated. Let's wait as time goes by when people start telling you in more detail what is contained in the paper. First, let's wait to see if India gets behind unit, because last time India said no. Maybe India was not ready. I'm going to come to India's preparedness in just a moment. Now, let's get back to how the unit is going to be immune to political pressure. 𝗣𝗽𝗼 Escobar describes the unit as a technical solution for creating a globally recognized payment system that is immune to political influence. The unit would be backed by 40% in gold and partially by the national currencies of BRICS nations, described as a fractal system scalable to include the private sector. Fractals are, if you can think of fractal images, right? The fractal images are basic points which will grow up to become the same thing in a bigger way. I don't want to get too far into fractals and the importance of that. The common man's for the common man's understanding, this approach will ensure that if a change is made in a particular currency because of, like I said, right, exports fall or exports rise, that can be immediately propagated because the entire thing is on the blockchain. So immediately the effect will be propagated across the whole network that is using the unit. So this is the important takeaway there. I'm very happy that this is on blockchain, which means the audit is immediate. Anybody can audit it as long as they get permission. So this will be what I would call as a permissioned blockchain. What a permission blockchain is, unlike the Bitcoin, which is unpermissioned, anybody can get on it. In permission blockchain, only few people will be allowed to get onto the blockchain to monitor what is going on. And that is fine, because a permission blockchain will not grow in size as fast as an unpermissioned will, and it's also easier to manage. Of course, you and I won't get permission to it, but certainly the central banks of each country will have it, and they may be able to appoint a third party who's independent to go and look at how the value of, for example, the Indian rupee inside the unit is varying. So where it comes very, very stark now is 40% of the unit is in gold. Now, the amount of gold each of these countries have, the BRICS nations have, will determine how much of power their currency will have, because that's a common number, right? It's told that China has close to 35,000 tons of gold, if not more. And Russia can produce its own gold. India's Kolar gold fields, not so much. But India's private gold wealth is a lot. Maybe that was the reason why the NDA government was trying to see if it could get the gold from many of the temple vaults, because it could then get an idea how much gold they actually have. Not declaring that gold, because that's private property, would actually weaken the power of India's currency in the unit. This is my observation. I could be wrong. By way of comments, you people can express your observations on what you think is going to happen if, for example, India goes up against a 30,000 ton gold reserve of China and says, I have only 10,000. Does that mean that Indian currency suddenly is only a third of the yuan? I don't know. That formula has not been revealed, but I have a feeling that the more gold a country has, the better it is going to rank up in the unit currency evaluation. This is my 2 cents. Okay. The ultimate goal is for the unit to be used for various financial activities, including accounting, pricing, settling, paying, saving, and investing. To start with, these things will be mostly country to country transactions. But as time goes, it's possible that these could get propagated to individuals also. Now, what happened to US dollar? Last year, the dollar strengthened because of rising interest rates and geopolitical tension. Because anytime there is a tension, people will flee to safety. And that safety is the United States dollars. Okay, so the dollar denominated debt and imports became more expensive because of a rising dollar. So again, people want some respite there. Why do I have to keep on paying everything in dollars? Because it is getting more and more expensive for me. And sanctions against Russia have led to speculation about non-Western allies moving away from the dollar. Like I told you, all the reasons. Putin noted that the irreversible process of de-dollarization is gaining momentum. Now, how much of a trouble is the US dollar in? The dollar's share of official foreign exchange reserves fell to a 20-year low of 58% in fourth quarter of 2022, adjusting to 47% for exchange rate changes according to IMF data. The links are provided in the reference section. Despite this, the dollar still dominates global trade with almost 90% of forex transactions, that is foreign exchange transactions, that is somebody buying from one country to the other, whatever trade that happens. According to Bank of International Settlements data, that is still 90%, 90. De-dollarization would require widespread, independent adoption of other currencies by exporters, importers, borrowers, lenders, and currency traders globally. Now, if India accepts this BRICS currency, that could definitely end dollar dominance. Because if you think of big four countries, right? Russia and China are together, one side. US is one side. India hasn't chosen sides on these two. But if India aligns with the BRICS on currency, then That is a body blow for the United States dollar. Now you understand why the US is applying pressure covertly and overtly on India to try and make them to not go to BRICS and accept this currency. But I don't know if India has been swayed enough by all these, what I would call as machinations by, Pannu assassination, this and that. I mean, he's a two-bit thug. He's going to get bumped off by somebody, if not on his own. I mean, I'm just saying, it's not a big deal, and it's, much of it has been hype created by media. See, I don't even, react to any of his comments anymore. It became more outrageous. The more we ignored him, the more outrageous his statements are. So let's just ignore that, right? So if India decides to align with Russia, China, Brazil, and South Africa, then India could reduce reliance on the dollar in international settlements. And that would significantly impact the dollar's hegemony in global trade, finance, and reserve. Let's say $80 billion is India's trade with China. Okay, this $80 billion today, how it would trade is India pays for it in dollars, it goes to Hong Kong, it gets converted to Hong Kong dollar, and then from Hong Kong dollar has a exchange rate with the yuan, and it goes into mainland China, gets executed, and whatever goods you get it back. But the input is the US dollar, not the Indian rupee. So if you think about that $80 billion being done in rupee or in unit, suddenly the dollar is no longer in play. Similarly, any country that buys crude from any other supplier, the settlement is done not between those two countries, but it's done in Houston, Texas. Houston provides you the underwriting, it provides you insurance, it provides you all the other things for a very reasonable fee. In fact, if you go and look at Houston, the city itself has become huge because of all this stuff. Suddenly, if Russia accepts unit from India for its crude, and also if Kingdom of Saudi Arabia accepts unit for its crude, suddenly all that money vanishes. Much of the Middle East money that comes into India by way of remittances, that is close to $80 to $100 billion a year. That could again change from dollar to something else. See, you can see by brick, the usage of dollars starts going down, and that's how the dollar's grip as a reference currency starts becoming loose, and that would eventually lead to an acceleration. In fact, this unit declaration could in fact make a hit on the stock markets, especially in the United States and United Kingdom. This is what I foresee, because they are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of what is going to happen in the years to follow. This could also lead to a shift in global financial system, reducing dollar's influence, and I explained to you the examples. So this is where we stand today. It's an important event, an event that was supposed to have taken place a couple of BRICS meetings ago, but I think somehow India stayed, waited. Finally, I think India said, oh wait, I'm going to just pull the trigger now and I'm going to go. I think that is the indication that India has given to US, or US thinks that that's what India is going to do. And if that happens, well, the de-dollarization process is truly on. So what does an investor do? If you are in United States, you may want to keep an eye on what is happening in the stock market, because the first thing that will happen is the stock market will start trending downwards. You may want to get out very quickly, because if you don't, this is going to be a very, very steep fall. Because we know, and many people have said this, that the United States stock market is overvalued. The price to earnings ratio of a share is nowhere close to what is the norm. It is 4 or 5 times more, especially the Magnificent Seven stocks, and much of it is in those stocks. So those stocks, if you happen to hold, you may want to keep an eye out. We are not a stock broking company. We don't offer you stock advice. We are just telling you which stocks appear to be frothy according to what our research says. Don't take our word for it. You should do your own research before you decide to sell or buy stocks. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.